as I looked at my phone, which was displaying an incoming call from Tyler. The conference room was alive with conversation. Anticipating the customary small conversation, I strolled out into the corridor. "How is the journey going? You'll be home when?" "Rather." Tyler's tone sounded aloof and arrogant. With a tone that seemed almost jubilant, he declared, "I'm divorcing you. You'll need to find a new place to live because I've already sold the flat. Have fun with it." I had trouble breathing for a while. The absurdity of the situation overwhelmed me. The total absence of regret. It was nearly comical. His words sank in, and my grasp became tighter around the phone. "Did you sell the apartment?" I asked, maintaining a steady tone. "Yes," he answered, laughing dryly. "To start our lives together. Nicole and I need the money. In any case, she deserves better than such a little space." Nicole, I had assumed there was someone else for months. But the name still hurt. The increasing distance between us, Tyler's unexpected work trips, and his late nights all suggested a third party. However, it made my heart race to hear him use her name so nonchalantly. As though I were the one who had invaded their lives. "That sounds good," I said calmly. I couldn't possibly give him the pleasure of listening to my breaks. "My name is Amelia, and I believed I had married a trustworthy man until that phone call." Although things hadn't always gone as planned, Tyler and I had been together for 6 years, and I had faith in our relationship. We had put a lot of effort into purchasing our flat, a comfortable 2-bedroom apartment in the metropolis that immediately captured my heart. It represented all we had created together and was more than simply a house. That's what I had assumed. Anyhow, in retrospect, there had been indications. I had disregarded minor fissures in the foundation. Tyler was always willing to dismiss my questions about money with a quick kiss and a lovely grin whenever I brought up the subject. I had always thought that his self-assurance stemmed from his expertise. I now understood that it was because he knew he could control me. The rest of the day passed quickly. My mind was racing as I sat through client meetings, nodding at the appropriate times. Tyler believed he had won. He believed he could take advantage of me, sell the house I had worked so hard to earn, and get away with it. He was unaware of one important element, though. For months, the apartment deed had only been in my name. After we refinanced earlier in the year, Tyler had consented to the transfer without giving it much thought because it would result in a reduced interest rate. He had never bothered to read the documents he had signed or inquire about the specifics. His negligence will prove to be his downfall. My shock had given way to resolve by the time I got back to my hotel room that night. I refused to weep or plead. Tyler desired a brawl? All right. But I was going to prevail in this battle. I called my old friend and lawyer, Chloe, first. With a steady voice despite my racing heart, I painstakingly explained the scenario. "Did he sell the apartment?" Incredulous, she repeated. "Is he even aware that he needs your permission to do it?" "Apparently not," I answered, my tone tinged with amusement. "He believes that his new life with Nicole has already cost him the money." Chloe gave a dry laugh. "He's going to have a harsh awakening. Then, the transaction is void. You may demonstrate exclusive ownership, and he is liable for fraud if he has stolen any money from the buyer." I felt a surge of satisfaction when I heard the term fraud. "What must we accomplish?" I inquired. "According to Chloe, we will first inform the buyer that the sale is illegal. After that, we'll write Tyler an official letter explaining the repercussions of his behavior. We will bring him to court if he is foolish enough to do anything else." I experienced an odd feeling of calmness as I hung up. Tyler believed he had outwitted me and had left me fumbling and helpless. In actuality, though, he had just prepared himself for the worst possible humiliation. For the remainder of the journey, I concentrated on my job, putting my feelings aside and directing my attention onto the task at hand. The idea of taking back my life and seeing Tyler's arrogance fall apart gave me a feeling of purpose that I hadn't had in months. Even if the betrayal still stung, I was prepared when I got on the aircraft to go home. I am prepared to confront Tyler. I am fully prepared to demolish his falsehoods. I am ready to start a new chapter in his absence. Winning wasn't the only goal here. It was about regaining authority. I had hours to reflect on how everything had fallen apart throughout the ride home. Tyler was really conceited. Tyler had not even attempted to hide his betrayal, viewing me as merely another obstacle to overcome on his journey to freedom. But rather than losing my temper, I concentrated on what I would do when I got back. Tyler thought I had no choices. But he didn't know that I had been strategically planning ahead. My first call was to Chloe when the plane landed. As I dragged my suitcase off the luggage carousel, I declared, "I'm back. What will happen next?" With a quick and effective tone. She said, "We've already informed the buyer." They weren't thrilled with Tyler and were, to put it mildly, stunned. Our argument is strengthened by their willingness to collaborate. Tyler, too? I inquired. This morning, I emailed him the official letter. She stated, "It describes your exclusive ownership of the residence, the illegality of the sale, and the possible repercussions of fraud." Although he hasn't replied yet, I'm going to assume that he is going to be quite upset. Well, I thought, give him time to stew. The flat was oddly silent when I got home. Tyler's belongings remained. The area seemed different, as if the vibe had changed. Even though his shoes were haphazardly thrown by the entrance and his jacket was slung over the chair. Knowing that the encounter would arrive soon enough, I took a big breath and put my luggage down. As expected, Tyler stormed in that evening. His phone clenched in his palm and his face flushed with rage. "What on earth is this?" He waved the letter Chloe had sent and yelled. "Are you implying that I am unable to sell the apartment? I own half of it." I crossed my arms and answered quietly, "No, Tyler, it isn't. For months, the deed has been in my name. Nothing you don't own may be sold." His face was a mix of anger and bewilderment as he froze. "What are you discussing?" I took the deed out of the file I had previously removed and held it up to him. "I had the deed changed to my name following our refinancing. Remember how you signed off on it? Or did you simply scan the documents like you always do?" He remained silent for a time before a scowl contorted his face. "Don't you think you're really intelligent? Nothing changes as a result. When everything goes wrong, you're going to appear foolish since I already struck a bargain." I fixed my unwavering gaze on him. "Tyler, the sale is already null and invalid. The buyer is aware of this. And should you fail to refund the money, they are prepared to file a lawsuit." Speaking of money, I lowered my voice and moved closer. "You're in significantly more trouble if you've spent even a single cent of that deposit." For the first time, Tyler's confidence faltered. He avoided looking at me and whispered, "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh," I answered steadily, "I know exactly what I'm talking about. You've been treating me as though I'm too innocent to see what you're doing for years." "Tyler, you know what? I've been listening, and now you'll have to face the repercussions." His irritation grew, and he began to pace. "This is absurd. You are oversimplifying everything. You can't simply leave me here." I arched an eyebrow. "I can. In fact, legally, I own this place. You're welcome to remain here for the time being. But only because I'm allowing you some leeway to consider your options. To be clear, though, I'm not leaving." Tyler's rage evolved into desperation throughout the course of the following several days. He kept calling me and left hysterical voicemails that alternated between threats and entreaties. Behind the scenes, Chloe ensured that all the unresolved issues were resolved. Enraged with Tyler for squandering their time and money, the buyer canceled the deal, and Chloe prepared the initial divorce documents. At one of our sessions, she informed me, "You're in a good position, Amelia. Tyler is powerless in this situation. He will need to comply if he wishes to prevent a more serious situation given the cancelled transaction and the fraud allegations that are looming over him." Her remarks relieved me, but they also brought to light the extent to which I had allowed Tyler to dominate my life. I'd put up with his contempt and haughtiness for years, telling myself it wasn't worth the struggle. But after realizing how much I had been giving up, I was determined to get everything back. One evening, Laura and my closest buddy came over to assist me with organizing the place. We carefully stacked Tyler's belongings in the living room corner after boxing them up. "How is he handling everything?" She smirked and held up one of his flashy ties as she asked. I laughed in spite of myself and added, "Not well. I'm not going to give up. But he still believes he can talk his way out of it." She tossed the tie into the box and replied, "Good. He is not worthy of even a fraction of your attention or space. I nodded, overwhelmed with appreciation for her help. I had been alone in my marriage for a long time, bearing the financial and emotional weight while Tyler claimed all the credit. However, having people on my side suddenly made a huge impact. The day Tyler took Nicole to the flat, the last element of my plan came together. They entered as if they owned the place as I was at the dining table going over some documents. Nicole grinned smugly as she glanced around. She slipped her arm through Tyler's. Are we remaining here, then? Her voice was brimming with entitlement as she spoke. With my heart racing but my determination unwavering, I got to my feet. No, I answered firmly. Tyler had been staying here. Nicole, you're not going to remain here at all. She looked at Tyler, who appeared just as shocked. And her grin wavered. What is this? He made a demand. This is my home, I remarked, pointing to the apartment surrounding me. Not her hotel, not yours, and definitely not a place for you to stay after you stab me in the back. Nicole's face froze, but she remained silent. Tyler, however, appeared on the verge of exploding. This is impossible, he yelled. You're crazy. Unflinching, I looked him in the eye. No, Tyler, the idea that you could sell my house, take the proceeds, and expect me to just roll over is absurd. You're fortunate that I haven't yet brought any criminal accusations. Nicole crossed her arms and appeared more uneasy as Tyler stood at the doorway. His face flushed with annoyance. With a desperate tone, he replied, Amelia, you're being ridiculous. I can't be evicted from my own house. I stepped forward and spoke in a steady but calm tone. Tyler, this is my home. You are aware that the deed has been in my name for some months. As usual, you sign the documents without ever reading them. Therefore, no, this is no longer your home. Nicole's immaculately manicured palm tightened around the strap of her handbag as she looked at Tyler. Wait, she said sharply. What's she talking about? You claim to have sold this apartment and that it was yours. He winced, attempting to dismiss her. It's not easy. I'll take care of it. Oh, I remarked, taking a step closer. It's not complicated. You attempted to sell an apartment that is not yours. Tyler, the sale is deemed invalid. Furthermore, you no longer have a solid foundation to stand upon. Nicole became agitated. Do you mean the cash you claim to have? Her voice rose as she paused in the middle of her statement. God forbid. Did you also lie about that? Let me explain. Nicole, Tyler replied hastily, raising his hands. She wouldn't have it, though. No, I interrupted him. Let me clarify. Tyler thought he could keep the money and leave me with nothing. So he tried to sell the flat without consulting me. He was unaware that I had the deed changed to my name some months prior. He therefore committed fraud by seeming to be able to sell it in addition to failing to do so. Like a fish struggling to breathe, Nicole's mouth expanded and closed. Fraud, she said, stepping back from him. Are you serious? Indeed. I crossed my arms and answered. Yes, fraud. And if he doesn't get his belongings and depart by the end of the day, I'm ready to file charges. At last, Tyler's facade broke. Amelia, you can't do this, he pleaded, his voice suddenly begging. We've spent 6 years together. You cannot simply dismiss me. I responded, stiffening my voice. You threw me out the moment you made that phone call. You laughed when you said you were divorcing me and that I would have to move. Tyler, you didn't simply betray me. You attempted to destroy me. Therefore, don't just stand there and seem to be the victim. Nicole stepped back again, her gaze flitting between us. She gripped her purse more tightly and whispered. This is crazy. Tyler, you didn't tell me any of this. You claimed to have everything under control. His expression was filled with desperation as he turned to face her. I can solve this, Nicole. All I need is. She lifted a hand to interrupt him. Just don't. I refuse to be involved in your mess. He was shocked as she turned on her heel and walked out without saying another word. As the door clicked behind her, I couldn't help but grin. Turning back to Tyler, I remarked, looks like you're on your own. Let's now discuss what comes next. He slumped onto the couch, his face buried in his hands. Please, Amelia, I made a mistake. I am aware of that. However, you are not required to do this. I picked up a folder from the kitchen counter and placed it on the coffee table in front of him, saying, "You're right. I will do this even if I am not required to. The divorce documents are here. It has already been prepared by my lawyer. Therefore I advise you to sign it right away. We can both move on sooner if you do it sooner." His face was white as he gazed at the folder. "Do you truly despise me that much? Hate you?" I laughed resentfully. "I don't hate you, Tyler. I'm sorry for you. You had a house we made together. Someone who loved you, and everything. But you tossed it all away because you were only interested in yourself." With my heart racing but my will unwavering, I stood. "By the end of the day, I want you to go. Gather your belongings and choose a place to stay. I will not be showing you any more grace after this." His shoulders slumped in despair as he opened his lips to speak but stopped. "All right," he whispered. "I'll leave." "Good," I murmured as I moved to the door. "Additionally, don't even consider attempting anything else. The next time you cross a line, I won't think twice about letting the courts handle it because Chloe is already taking care of everything." Tyler rose up slowly and grabbed his coat as I opened the door. His footsteps were laden with defeat as he left without glancing at me. I briefly felt sad that we could have had a different life if he had been who I thought he was. However, relief swiftly replaced that time. Using the new key I had produced, I locked the door after him. Now, this was my home, and nobody would ever take it away from me, not even Tyler. After Tyler went, there was an overwhelming quiet in the flat. I felt like I could breathe for the first time in years. His presence, his entitlement, and his falsehoods no longer made the room seem heavy. It was only me, the house I had created, and the silent knowledge that I had triumphed, not only over him, but also over all of my self-doubts. Observing the empty space where his belongings had been, I stood in the center of the living room. He had removed the garish coffee table, the framed jerseys that had covered the walls, and his enormous gaming chair. The place appeared brighter, cleaner, and like it belonged to me once more. That night, Lauren stopped by with a bottle of wine and takeout. With a theatrical sigh, she plopped down on the couch and questioned, "Is he really gone?" I poured 2 glasses of wine and remarked, "Gone and not coming back." I allowed him to pack his belongings till the end of the day. He didn't dispute it. Lauren held up her glass. I clinked my glass to hers, feeling the weight of the previous week gradually go away. To fresh starts and well-deserved victories. I said this, vowing never to let anyone walk all over me again. It was more than just redecorating. I started to reclaim the apartment piece by piece over the course of the following few days. Moving my favorite piece of art into the living room, rearranging the furniture, and filling the area with items that brought me joy. Chloe called with updates on the legal proceedings, her voice full of the confidence that made me feel invincible. The fraud charges are off the table since the buyer decided not to pursue them. She explained, it was about making the apartment reflect who I was, not the person Tyler had tried to make me. However, the divorce process is proceeding without any issues. You'll be formally free after Tyler signs. The word, free, made my chest constrict. The divorce wasn't the only issue. It had to do with everything I had been holding onto for years. The sense of being stuck in a marriage that didn't appreciate me. The animosity, and the self-doubt. It was everything being removed at last. Tyler made many attempts to get in touch. His communications varied from pitiful attempts to shame me into making amends to flimsy apologies. "I made a mistake," one person wrote. "At the very least, can we discuss this?" Another had greater desperation. I didn't respond. "Amelia, you're going to ruin me. Is that what you want?" The apartment seemed like a whole different place at the end of the week. And for once, I wasn't going to waste my energy trying to mend something that was damaged beyond repair. He'd made his decisions, and now he was facing the consequences. Tyler's treachery had been shocking, but it had also served as a wake-up call. I sat on the couch with a cup of tea, the city lights glittering outside the window, and reflected on everything that had transpired. It was warm, welcoming, and all mine. I had allowed myself to think for too long that I was unworthy of better. That I had to be content with whatever meager amount of love and respect he chose to give me. But suddenly I realized that I was not only taking back my apartment but also my life. My life looked entirely different a month later. And the apartment was a reflection of who I was. My tastes, my personality, and my newfound freedom. This was not because of any significant changes, but rather because of the way it felt. The house felt lighter and freer without Tyler's clutter and his controlling presence. The divorce was proceeding without incident since Chloe had managed everything precisely, leaving Tyler with little opportunity to dispute or make things more difficult. There was no big confrontation, no emotional appeal to make things better. Just a cold, clean break that was heartbreaking and incredibly fulfilling. And he signed the paperwork without any fanfare. Perhaps aware that he had little leverage, I found a picture of Tyler and me from our early years together, smiling and holding hands, full of promise and optimism. While going through some old files one day, I gazed at it for a while, allowing the emotions to fill me. I slipped the picture into an envelope and stored it in a drawer, remembering the wonderful days, the times when I really thought we were creating a life together. But those times were gone, buried behind years of manipulation, betrayal, and indifference. Lauren and I celebrated the official divorce with dinner and cocktails at a hip rooftop bar downtown. But I wasn't ready to throw it away either. Even though it wasn't worth having out in the open, it was a part of my history. But it no longer defined me. I chuckled, feeling a warmth I hadn't had in years. "You're glowing," she added, lifting her cocktail in a toast. "Single life suits you," I answered. "It's not the single life, it's the freedom. I don't feel like I'm living under someone else's rules for the first time." We raised a glass to that. And as the evening wore on, I began to feel more and more proud of myself since I had overcome one of the most trying times in my life and wasn't merely getting by. I was doing well. I went back home and began making plans for the future. The flat had evolved into more than just a haven. It represented all I had taken back. But I knew I wouldn't remain there indefinitely. Eventually, I would go somewhere else where my life with Tyler wouldn't cast its shadow. As I cuddled up on the sofa that night, a feeling of calm came over me, and I couldn't help but grin as I remembered how Tyler had chuckled throughout that phone call. So sure that he'd won. Until then, I was determined to make the most of every minute in the place I'd worked so hard to maintain. This wasn't simply the end of a marriage, it was the start of a new chapter. One in which I made the decisions and chose happiness according to my own standards. His conceit had been the cause of his demise, and my calm strength had been my deliverance. And I finally felt completely free after a while.